Hello and welcome back to ScaleMeDown and to a build and review of this Kranich II radio control glider kit from the Tony Ray range of aeromodels. Now, unlike his smaller indoor models, this kit is a bit bigger and it's for outdoor use. And once again, this kit has been kindly supplied for review by Steve Webb Models, and I'll pop a link in the description below as to where you can get one for yourself. Please remember to like and subscribe to support the channel. Now let's get cracking. Let's open the box and have a look at the parts. As well as a carbon wing spar, we get these crystal clear vacuum moulded canopies, and once again the quality of the laser cutting is exquisite. Included is this full-size printed CAD plan, which are supplemented with these PDF downloadable instructions. A big improvement on his previous designs is that the part numbers are etched in onto the wooden sheets. So with the photo instructions on my iPad and a fresh blade in my knife, let's make a start. Construction starts with the rudder, which is a good warm-up and is representative of how the whole aeroplane is put together. For assembly, I'm using this superphatic aliphatic glue from Deluxe Materials applied with a cocktail stick after first carefully checking the fit. The basic structure comes together quickly and accurately, and then there are these laser cut balsa doublers to apply. The strip wood is also laser cut, here for the cap strips. Some further laminations are added before the whole structure is sanded, rounded and smoothed. Here we have the rudder completed. And it's surprising how all these very flimsy, delicate pieces come together to make a very rigid, strong structure that's very light. It took a couple of hours to get to this stage, but it was quite pleasant. But you can see there's quite a lot of building required in this kit. The tailplane is constructed in much the same way as this time-lapse shows. And all the sheeting and cap strips are also laser cut. I've lightly wetted the sheeting to make it conform better. And once again all completed and sanded. Note here the laser cut slots for the tiny elevator hinges that are also included in the kit. The wing construction is a bit different and more like the traditional style of building, as the parts are pinned down to a flat board. The panels then get their leading and trailing edges sheeted, top and bottom, and rib capping strips applied. And this is how the superphatic glue is designed to be used, by wicking it between tightly fitting parts. These completed wing panels are the fruit of about 12 hours work, and I enjoyed the build for the most part, as the parts fit really well. Perhaps a bit too well in places. However, this superphatic aliphatic glue does give you a few seconds to undo your work if you make a mistake, and it did actually save the day on a couple of occasions. It's not difficult getting to this stage, but there is a lot of building, and I had to work in short bursts as the kit isn't very tolerant of you making mistakes. I really enjoyed getting to this stage. However, there were one or two niggles in the process, particularly with the construction of the ailerons, as the parts are quite small and fiddly and quite difficult to pin down to the board effectively. Also, the accuracy wasn't quite as high as it was on the rest of the wing construction. Also, the leading edge sheeting is a little unusual in design, and I had to wet the outside surfaces with a few spritzes of water from this perfume atomizer bottle to help it bend and conform to the structure. And in this case, I glued it down using medium CA glue. You can see here how the sheeting meets at a leading edge spine, making the curvature quite tight, as opposed to a traditionally built leading edge as shown on our two-seat Spitfire here. The construction of the fuselage is more akin to a free flight model, such as a keelcraft kit. I'm pinning down the keel outline directly to the plan that I've protected with cling film. I'm using some insulation foam as a building board so that I can push the pins in with my fingers, but notice I have to push the pins into the sides of the parts to avoid splitting them, as they're very small and delicate. I could then add all the fuselage half frames, which are also precision laser cut from thin plywood. Longerons or stringers are then added to the notches in the half frames, although some had to be spliced to make them long enough. However, unlike an old-fashioned rubber-powered kit, each fuselage half gets its own keel, being built simultaneously. The plan showed a small amount of distortion as I built the fuselage. By setting F1 exactly into position, the misalignment accumulates towards the tail. I had to adjust the tailplane seat accordingly. Even these tiny rare earth magnets are supplied for retaining the canopy. It's nearly time for us to join the two fuselage halves, but before we do, we must fit the wing joiners. To do that, the instructions call for us to make an 81-degree template like this. And this is made from the same foam that we used as a building surface. It's nice and broad, so it will stand on its own. We set up the wing roots just like this to set precisely the correct wing dihedral angle. And then we align these small inner tubes into the fuselage halves by sliding the carbon fibre wing spars into position. And here I found another slight error with the kit, in that there's only enough carbon fibre tube supplied for one wing. This of course is an easy fix with a trip to my local model shop. Once the joiner tubes are aligned and tacked, they can be permanently bonded with thread and epoxy, and then the two half fuselage frames joined. The entire rear fuselage and fin are sheeted with laser cut parts, and again wetting the wood helps it to curve and conform to the shapes. With this construction method, it will be easy to introduce an inadvertent twist, so work symmetrically, slowly and check regularly. In order to check this accurately, I had to epoxy the gull wing knuckles together. Just notice how thin the plywood braces are though. The rest of the fuselage is made up with planking and little bits. I helped the planking to fit with CA glue by tapering, wetting and chamfering the planks to this profile. Let's review the results of around 30 hours of building. And there's still a few bits and pieces to do, including the canopy, the wingtip, nose and tail tip blocks, and a thorough sanding across the whole airframe before we move on to next week's episode, where we'll cover the airframe and fit the radio gear. But what do we think so far? The kit is quite well engineered, and it's of an unusual subject, which is nice to see. It's a lightweight design which is essential for such a tiny model. And construction is a little unorthodox at times. It does work, but it's quite a complex build, and there is a lot of building. In fact, as much building as you can expect from a 3 or even 5 metre vintage glider of this type. It also makes it quite slow, and you must take your time as the kit is unforgiving of you making mistakes, and hence it's aimed at fairly advanced builders. The laser cutting is brilliant, and it limits the amount of mess made during construction, and in fact I made this one in here on the dining room table. I hope you've enjoyed the build this far as much as I have. So join us next time where we'll tackle the covering and the fitment of the radio gear. Thanks for watching.